Joining me this week on the London Theatre Review is Arinzé Kene, starring in Alterations at the National Theatre at the moment. Welcome, Arinzé. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit. This is a play from the 1970s, rediscovered through the Black Theatre Archive,
Yeah.
written by Michael Abensets. Yes, tell us a bit about it and your role within it.
So the play really at its core is about ambition. And it's about a character, his name is Walker Holt, and I play Walker. And he came over on the Windrush, and he came over with a dream, and basically he becomes a tailor. And initially, he's working, quite tough, menial type of jobs, within that industry. So it means working factories, and things like that. But he's got this dream of owning his own shop, and throughout the story, you basically see what it takes, in order to make it, in order to scale the ranks, and and actually, it's a really beautiful story, about what it takes, when you're coming from behind. And obviously, in the 70s, London and England, it was a very different place back then, and attitudes were very different towards people of color, and the opportunities were very different as well. So we actually get to see how high the stakes are, and
Yeah.
how much the odds are stacked against him, and then there are also some wonderful other stories, around him, and believe it or not, it's actually a bit of a comedy.
Yeah, I was going to say there's quite a lot of humour in it, I gather. And as we said, it is set in a tailoring shop in the 1970s, so I gather the fashions are quite out there.
Oh my goodness, the fashion is absolutely stunning. It's stellar, man. It's brilliant. I remember when I first saw my costume, I was like, man, this is just gorgeous. I don't know why we switched it up. 70s fashion was incredible, man. But yeah, all the characters, they look amazing. Not just the clothes, but also the style of the boots and the shoes, and the hair as well. So it actually looks quite incredible, the show as well.
It's a hell of an ensemble, isn't it? I mean, it's a fairly smallish group, but a great cast, a great cast that you're working with, including Sherelle Skeet playing your wife in it.
Yeah.
Sort of somewhat semi-estranged wife, I think it would be safe to say.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there are 11 of us in the cast, and everybody is just absolute joy to work with, and so much talent. It's just overflowing. Rehearsals was incredible. Sherelle is like just an absolute dream to work with, and we have tons of chemistry. Even though it's an interesting story, that storyline with Walker and Darlene, husband and wife, and again, just to reiterate what it takes, in order to achieve what such a dream that Walker's after. You get to really see that he's not perfect. He's made some sacrifices along the way, but he's also he can be quite a selfish man, and also in relationships, things were very different back then.
Yeah.
Expected of a man and a woman, it was actually quite old school, ways of thinking, and so you see them as they bristle against it, and try and make.
Yeah. Do you see any of your? I know your dad was Nigerian, wasn't he? And your character's from Guyana in this. But do you see anything of your dad's generation in the character of Walker or those around him?
Do you know what? If there's one common thing that a lot of people from I guess, whether it's the African diaspora or even Caribbean, like, well, one unifying thing is people saying that Walker reminds them of their dad.
Right.
So many of our fathers came here and tried to make something work for themselves, right? I think there was this great frustration um, behind working for somebody else and treated like a certain type of way. Many treated very poorly,
Yeah.
and actually that's where this dream comes from, where it's like, I want to be my own boss, someday. And so, yes, it does remind me of my dad quite a bit, actually. And like I said, so many other people, have said, oh, it reminds me of my dad. Even the fact that, I mean, depending on how you interpret the play, does Walker make it or not?
Yeah.
It kind of ends in a way where, you kind of, it's not sure, that he's made it, but he's definitely lost some things along the way.
And I was interested looking into Michael Avenzetts, who I was, ashamed to say that I knew little about, and realised what a pivotal figure he was. But you're stepping into the shoes of the great Don Warrington in this, aren't you? In the show.
Correct. You know, yeah, I mean, I don't know how to fill those shoes, because Don is such a fantastic actor, and also, it's a real honor actually, just because of the amount of doors that actors like Don, who came before myself, they opened, and held open, for people like me to be able to come and and act a fool on the national stage every night. It's and Michael as well. It's a real, as a create someone who makes theatre today,
Yes.
and experiences challenges, and I've been making theatre for now, well, since 2008. And so
Yeah.
I've seen it change, for the better, and I've also seen how tough it was in the beginning, and just to imagine how, like, what Michael had to put up with, in the 70s. It's just, it's just to have this play here, to have it break through and actually find a stage in the 70s and in the early 80s, I think, when it was last on, it just must have been an absolute feat.
Yeah. As you say, you're a theatre maker on sort of multiple fronts. You're an actor in straight theatre, an actor in musical theatre. Last time I saw you on stage as Bob Marley in Get Up, Stand Up. And you're also a writer. How do you balance those three sort of disciplines? I mean, after you've done Get Up, this is your first show since Get Up, Stand Up, isn't it? Your first play.
Yes.
Were you desperate to get back to some non-singing role, or when you're acting, do you miss the writing? How does it balance out?
Do you know what I used to try and dictate what was happening, like, oh, I'll do a play, I'll do a musical, I'll do some television and some film, and I'll write this and that. And I realized that that's just not realistic, and the way I figure it all out now is just, I just do what draws me,
Yeah.
so it's that attraction that I go by, and generally it's like, I'll read everything, I'll sit with directors and so on, and I'll pursue my own work, and I just let myself move like a compass,
Right.
and that will tell me what's next, because of actually you can get into a place where it's a silly thing, and I understand why some performers have this thing where they try and come off a certain way, so they go, oh no, I can't do two musicals back to back, otherwise people are gonna think I'm a musical actor, and
Yeah.
I have to do something very serious now. And I can understand how you can get into a place where you're just being so tactical, but I enjoy being a performer. I truly enjoy it, and I'll never let that kind of tactical sort of a strategic approach get in the way of me having a good time,
Right.
because of no, I'm just gonna go for what feels right, and I like to challenge myself as well, but generally, like, I'm going for what feels good.